Greetings and welcome to another Tomorrow's World webcast. My name is Wallace Smith. It's wonderful to have you here. The topic I bring you today isn't actually a news item, but it is a newsworthy item. I wish I had noticed it when it first came out. It's actually a public statement by the American College of Pediatricians. It's a group of pediatricians that have come together who desire to practice pediatrics in an ethical manner in accordance with the facts and what they see, and to not do harm to children or families. At least that's how I understand their statement. It includes Dr. Paul McHugh. You may have remembered that I mentioned him on the webcast we did concerning Joshua Alcorn and his tragic death. You can go back and find that in our archives. The title of their public statement, released March 21st, 2016, is this: Gender Ideology Harms Children. Gender ideology harms children. And it lists a series of facts. Let me just go through some of those facts. I don't have time to do them all. First thing they point out: human sexuality is an objective, biological, binary trait. X, Y, and XX are genetic markers of health, not genetic markers of a disorder. That is, if you have an XX chromosome or an XY chromosome, which means if you were a female or a male, that's a sign you're healthy. That is not a sign of a disorder. You have good chromosomes. The second point: no one is born with a gender. Now let me give some space here. You might think they're going in a different direction than they are. Give them time. They say no one is born with a gender. Everyone is born, however, with a biological sex. Gender, an awareness and sense of oneself as male and female, is a sociological and psychological concept, not an objective biological one. Now, if you read the details, I don't have time to read all the details, you have to understand what they're saying, because they actually lay it out more detailed in a very explicit way. They say that you're born a boy. You have XY chromosomes. Life can influence you. In fact, there are cases where boys have been reared as girls, as even parts of experiments and such, or maybe I have the gender switched. And they're saying you can be taught. You're actually, they point out, your developmental process may be derailed, they say, due to adverse experiences, they say, where there's confusion, where you think you're a gender that doesn't match your sex. They're not going along with society's current trends. They're trying to explain that this is a problem, not a good thing. Let me read some more of their points. Their third point: a person's belief that he or she is something they are not is, at best, a sign of confused thinking. Amen. To just see someone say that so plainly. A sign of confused thinking. To think that you're a male and you're not. And to think you're a female and you're not. They're saying at best that's confused thinking. They point out that it's currently called gender dysphoria, used to be called gender identity disorder, but that it is at best confused thinking. Let's jump down to their fifth point. They say according to the DSM-V, what is that, or 5? It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. They say according to that, as many as 98% of gender-confused boys and 88% of gender-confused girls eventually accept their biological sex after naturally passing through puberty. Please understand what that says. What they're trying to address is this wave of adults that are intervening on prepubescent children's lives at the ages of 5 and 6 and 7, where you have, say, a boy who's confused about his gender identity, and they're intervening and they're starting to do hormone blockers and trying to prevent the coming of puberty, to make future surgical alterations of their body to make them look like a woman easier. They're trying to teach them, well, maybe you're not a boy. You could be a girl. You have to discover what you are. And they're saying that if you just leave those boys alone, 98% of them will get through puberty and identify with their biological sex. That we're doing them a harm by confusing them further and sticking chemicals into their body, when studies show that 98% of them will come through puberty just fine. Let me just read a couple more points. Their seventh point: rates of suicide are 20 times greater among adults who use cross-sex hormones and undergo sex reassignment surgery, even in Sweden, which is among the most LGBTQ-affirming countries. The point there, people claim that the suicide rate for transsexuals is somehow due simply to society's lack of acceptance. And they're pointing out that even in countries that accept this hormone blocking and surgical procedures, the suicide rate is still high. It's still high. What they're saying is that here's a population of adults with a vastly high suicide rate, and we're just encouraging somehow children to be a part of that? Finally, really, they conclude in their 8th point, conditioning children into believing that a lifetime of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex is normal and healthful is child abuse. What a clear statement that somehow telling a child who is just a child dependent on adults that committing to a lifetime of constantly taking hormones to suppress your sex and to surgically alter your body to impersonate the other sex, convincing a child that's a normal, healthy life is child abuse. Why don't we see clear statements like this anymore? Why don't we see our culture consistently affirming ideas like this? Why does it have to be a small group like this? Because the society wants lies now. There's a prophecy about that in Isaiah chapter 30. Let me read it. It's verses 9 through 10. This is a rebellious people, lying children, children who will not hear the law of the Lord, who say to the seers, do not see, and to the prophets, do not prophesy to us right things. Speak to us smooth things. Prophesy deceits. That prophecy has this culture nailed. It is exactly descriptive of where we are today, where we don't want truth like this. We don't want plain truth spoken to us, where our culture wants lies, smooth things that satisfy our personal whims and ideologies. And I'm sorry, a culture that demands lies is a culture whose children will suffer. Thanks for watching. Please check out everything we have available at tomorrowsworld.org.